Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about economics. One of the things I want to talk to you guys about is how we value things. Now, for those of you that are new to my channel and you don't know, my background is I'm an accountant. Okay, so despite the fact that you guys see me shooting a lot of guns and that I am in fact a full-time gun instructor, in my previous life I was an accountant, and my last position was a chief financial officer for an import-export company. However, shooting guns is a lot more fun. I really enjoy teaching people how to shoot, so I left that life and now I teach people how to shoot on a pretty much every day. So but I still retain that knowledge. I still actually have a couple of clients that I work with, and today I want to talk to you guys about how we value things. Okay, now the typical way that we value things is we put we associate a dollar value to it. Okay, now recently, right, people have realized that money really fluctuates. Okay, the value of money goes up or down depending on the supply of money that's out there, right? So the more money the government creates, the less value that money has. Now, basically, the government is not the one that's supposed to create money. The way the money is supposed to be created is by us, okay? So the way the system is supposed to work is that if you own a mine and you mine gold, you take that gold to the bank, right? And then what happens is the bank gives you a receipt, right, for that gold that you've deposited for them. And now you can use those receipts to trade with other people, okay, as currency, all right? So basically you've created money, okay? Now since most of us don't have a gold mine, right, the way we create money is we mortgage our house, okay, or our cars or whatever. So when you go get a mortgage, the bank, through the banking rules, is allowed to create money. They basically electronically create the money to lend to you, right? So what happens, this new money that's created is now backed by an asset, and there's no difference if that asset is backed by gold or a house or land. In fact, I would argue that the land is and the houses are a lot more valuable than the gold. But the point is that when we create money, we put up a real asset. The problem here is that when the government creates money, they put up debt. Okay, so basically they create these treasury bills and these treasury bonds, and they use that as the asset. So instead of putting up a real asset, they put up debt, to create money. The problem here is that we're all working under the same system. So you have to put up real assets to create money. The government doesn't. There's a limit as to how much money you can create, right? Because you're limited by the assets that you have. There's no limit as to how much money the government can create, because they can just keep, creating debt electronically. And just to give you guys an idea of how much debt they create, all right, 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years, all right? So if you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, it would take you 31,000 years to get to the number 1 trillion. So basically, $1 trillion does not exist in reality. That money is electronically created on a computer, okay? So the point here is that using money to value things no longer makes sense. It probably hasn't made sense for a long time, because the money is being continually diluted, okay? So a way to value something is how, what work does it do? So if I've got a shovel, okay, that moves 5 pounds of dirt, the value of that shovel is that it moves 5 pounds of dirt, okay? So that same shovel from 100 years ago, right? If you go back to the year, let's say 1900, right? If you have a shovel that moves 5 pounds of dirt and you have a shovel today that moves 5 pounds of dirt, both shovels are worth both shovels have exactly the same value. It doesn't matter whether that shovel 100 years ago was, I don't know, you could buy it for whatever, 25 cents, and today you got to pay $20 for that shovel. The shovel has the same exact value. because when you look at the work that it does the same thing. It moves 5 pounds of dirt. Okay, so that is a much better way to value something. Another way to value something is a bullet. Okay, what is the value of a bullet? Okay, you know, and a lot of times when people are buying ammunition, they're saying, okay, they're paying 30 cents per round, or 25 cents per round, or 45 cents per round. Okay, the value of a bullet is one life. Okay, that is the value of a bullet. Now, there's two ways to looking at it. Okay, you can look at it in terms of taking a life or protecting a life. Okay, so you can look at it from either way: glass half full, glass half empty. But the value of a bullet is one life. Okay, all right. So that's a better way to value something. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about import exporting. Right. Because a lot of times when we look at, you know, when we look at imports, exports, we look at this trade deficit, right? There's more, basically we import more than we export, okay? You know, here's the thing. The problem with this is people value that in terms of money, okay? I have a better way of valuing imports, exports, okay? I say take the dollars out of it completely, especially in this type of environment where the government's just printing up money, right? Electronically printing up money. Take the dollars out of the situation, out of the equation altogether, and let's go back to a barter system, okay? If we were bartering, right? Let's say we were bartering with China, or bartering with India, or bartering with other countries around the world, okay? If we're bartering, okay, do you want more value coming into you, or do you want to be giving more value away? Okay, you know, I mean that is a better way to look at international trade. Do you want more valuable things coming into your country, or do you want valuable things going out of your country? Okay, you know, when you think of it that way, I think the obvious answer is you want more valuable things coming in than you want going out. So it's one of those things that I think that is not discussed because we don't want the other side to know what's really happening. But the current economic situation, the situation that has developed over the last 50 years, is we import valuable things rather than export. So we buy all these valuable things, and what are we giving in exchange? Well, obviously we do export some things, but most of the things that we export is paper money or electronic money, okay, which is being electronically created, okay? So if you look at the trade situation, it's not so cut and dry. It's one of those things where it's like, I think maybe this is the better thing for us, and you know, because we're importing more than we're exporting, and you know, we got all these imports coming in of valuable goods, and we're paying for it with worthless money. I think we might actually be benefiting from that. Okay, so just something to consider. Now, another thing to consider is the oil situation, right? Here's a very interesting thing. Same deal. Do we want to be producing our own oil, or do we want to be importing our own oil? Okay. Now, here's the thing to consider. Okay. There's a finite amount of oil in the ground, okay? Everywhere in the world, every country, all the countries that have oil, okay, there's only so much oil in the ground. And the way oil is created, the way oil was originally created, right, millions of years ago, the bacteria to break down the trees and the dead animals had not evolved yet, okay? So when all the trees fell to the ground and they died, okay, there was no bacteria, there was no mushrooms, there was nothing to eat those trees. When all the animals died, basically their corpses kind of just stayed in the ground. There was nothing to break down those corpses. So the trees basically turned into coal, right, as they got continually compressed. The animals basically turned into oil, right, as they sat there over the millions of years. So you know, after that, the bacteria to break that stuff down developed. So now you can't create new coal. You cannot create new oil. Whatever's in the ground, that's it. That's the only thing that's ever going to be created, right? You can't make more of it, at least naturally, right? You might be able to make it synthetically, but you can never make more oil or more coal naturally, because the bacteria breaks down the trees, it breaks down all the dead animals. Okay, that was not the case millions of years ago. You know, the conventional wisdom back in the 70s, right, which is kind of like forgotten now or not mentioned, was that it made a lot more sense to buy other people's oil, right, and leave our oil in the ground, so that when their oil ran out at some point in the future, whether it be 50 years or 100 years or 200 years from now, we would still have oil in the ground over here. Okay, so that was the conventional wisdom back in the 70s, and people stopped talking about that. Now, the current situation is that oil prices have gone completely stupid because of the politics. All right, so here's the thing: if it is in fact your intention, right, to leave your oil in the ground and use up other people's resources, which you know, I can see the value to that. You gotta do it in such a way that they don't know that you're no longer drilling your oil, that you're conserving your own oil, you're conserving your own resources. You gotta do it in such a way that they really aren't aware of it, so that they don't jack up the prices. Okay, so that is the error that I am seeing now. So this isn't something I made up. This was the logic. This was actually discussed back in the 70s, right? Back in the early 80s. This was a strategy that was actually discussed, and you know, I think that, I mean, I can't believe this strategy is no longer being discussed, and I think that the reason why it is no longer being discussed is because they don't want the other side to know what we're doing over here. Okay, so I think that there's in fact a logic to it, but it's being employed in such a way that is so sloppy that the other side knows that they can raise prices. Okay, the logical thing would be to start producing more oil, producing more energy here, so that the other side basically starts dropping their prices, and then slowly start, you know, cutting your own production to you know, conserve your own resources. Now, the other thing that you could be doing is using atomic energy. Okay, you know, nuclear energy. That is where all of our electricity, all of our electric power should be coming from. We shouldn't be using coal, and we shouldn't be using oil to make electricity, because that can be done on a large scale where it makes sense to use nuclear power. Obviously, you can't run your car with nuclear power because the nuclear engine needs to be really large. But for creating electricity, it does make sense, and I think it's insane that we're not using nuclear energy to create oil, to create electricity throughout this country. Okay, so just something to consider here. I'm just kind of bringing back to the surface some things that were discussed back in the 70s and the 80s that seem to have been forgotten now, and just kind of, you know, just letting you guys think about it for a while. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about immigration. Okay, here's the thing: immigration, bringing immigrants into your country makes sense if you have a need for the labor, right? So if you've got factories here, if you're producing everything internally, it makes sense to bring immigrants into the country. But in this case, we're importing most of our goods, right? We really don't have that many factories here, especially for doing easy stuff like making shoes, all the labor-intensive stuff, that's all being done overseas. Okay, so basically we're using Chinese slave labor to create these products. So it does not make sense to bring in more immigrants into this country when there isn't a market for cheap labor. Okay, all the labor in this country is basically skilled labor, right? That's the type of labor that we have at this point in this country. Unless we're going to switch over to an economy where we're making all of the stuff that we're importing, it doesn't make sense to keep importing cheap labor. So the only reason why we have all this immigration going on? Why is the southern border open? I mean, the only logical reason there is that is being done for political reasons. You know, they're basically looking to import people so that they can vote for Democrats, basically, okay? There's no other logical reason, right? If you don't have an economy that runs on cheap labor, there's no sense in continually importing people that have nothing to offer other than cheap labor. I mean, that just makes absolutely no sense. It does not fit into any of this, because some of this stuff fits together. Like, I can understand, you know, if you consider the bartering concept, right? Take money out of the equation and you can say, hey, it makes a lot more sense to be importing valuable things than exporting valuable things. That makes sense, right? I can understand the trade deficit, right? You know, I can understand leaving the oil and the coal in the ground for future generations to use, right? You know, and importing and using other people's resources. That makes sense, okay? I can buy into that. I think it's being done really sloppy. It could have been done in such a way that that the prices weren't spiking. The other thing is you could be supplementing this with nuclear power, again, so that the prices wouldn't be spiking. So on a theoretical level, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to not supplement it with nuclear power. Now, again, if the goal here is to try and take everybody else's resources without them really realizing what's going on, and you need some way to trick them, yeah, maybe you'll push the whole climate change. By the way, it's like freaking 20 degrees today. I'm freezing my nuts off. I want global warming, and it's not happening, okay? You know, anyway, that's besides the point. But anyway, yeah, the climate change thing is complete BS. I'm freezing my nuts off here. Now, if they're using that to, you know, as a cover, you know, or as an excuse for why they're why they're cutting off the production here and importing other people's resources, maybe that makes a little sense. You know, I can see if they're using it as a cover. But here's the thing. The thing that I hate about the whole climate change BS is that it takes away from the fact that pollution is bad, okay? Because here's the thing, when you cover, you know, here's the thing, if they would just say that we're trying to reduce pollution, that by itself can stand on its own. And here's the thing, I live out in the woods. I hate pollution, right? So you don't have to try and sell me climate change to convince me that pollution is bad and you know, we should try and reduce pollution. Most of the pollution in the world, by the way, is in China and India, right? That's where all the factories are. That's where the pollution is going to be. That's where the you know, the majority of the world's population is, right? They got like what, like 2 billion, between China and India, they got something like 3 or 4 billion people. I don't know what they got there, but that's where all the pollution is. It's not here, okay, in the United States. But anyway, I kind of went off on a rant there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a different way of thinking of things, and I'm introducing some ideas here that may seem new, but they're actually old. All right, these are old ideas that go back to the 70s and the 80s, right? When I was, you know, reading about this stuff, right? This idea of you know, it's better to import valuable things than export valuable things, okay? That it's better to keep your resources in the ground for future use and use other people's resources, right? And then when their resources run out, then you go back to using your own resources. The immigration thing does not fit into this. It made sense like 200 years ago when we had a lot of factories here and we needed cheap labor. That made sense. The other thing is they basically needed people to populate the country and hold it, right? Because we had a lot of empty land. And the thing is, if you don't put your people on that land, chances are somebody else might move in and take that land. So you need somebody to occupy that land. We're way past that now, okay? We don't need people to occupy land. It's bad enough we're on top of each other as it is right now. So the immigration thing, it makes absolutely no sense. Think about how you value things, right? Don't value things in terms of dollars. Value them in terms of what they do, okay? You know, like I said earlier, You know, a shovel that moves 5 pounds of dirt is worth that, right? It can move, you know, a shovel that moves 10 pounds of dirt obviously has twice the value. Okay, now you gotta have the strength to move that shovel, but that's how a more realistic way of valuing things. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, remember the channel, subscribe and follow me also on Odysee. I got 2 strikes on this channel and 1 more, and I'm basically, they'll delete all my videos. So find me on Odysee, search my channel name, you should be able to find me out over there. I'll talk to you all soon.